Well, the biggest misconception is that science is ever settled. I think the public has that to their dismay, because believing that science is settled is antithetical to science. Think about it, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
If Galileo came along and said, "Well, Aristotle was a scientist. He's very smart. I'll just accept that there are only 4 elements instead of 114, or that heavy things fall faster than light things." All these things he could have verified, by the way, but he didn't actually go out and do that. But Galileo would never have come up with the initial laws of relativity. Same with Newton, Einstein, because Newton is a genius. I can't outdo Newton, as he often looked up to him. So therefore, as Richard Feynman, the great Nobel laureate of the 20th century, said, science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. Otherwise, you'd have no motivation to ever modify, refine, and improve upon who or what came before you.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is a distinguished professor of physics at the Center for Astrophysics and Space Sciences at UC San Diego, and author of the new book, Into the Impossible, Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner, Brian Keating. Finally, welcome to the Rubin Report.
Thank you, Dave. You were my first big guest on my podcast, so it's nice to return the favor. I know you've been looking forward to having a big guest like me on for a while.
I've wanted a man of science on for quite some time. I've wanted to talk to you for a while on the show, because I think this will be a little bit different than the shows that we normally do, but framing one thing sort of politically, just to jump us off. As a man of science, and as a man that just wrote a book about how scientists approach science, what do you make of the state of science at the moment? Science is getting pretty banged up these days.
Yeah, it's tough. I used to say I enjoy being an astronomer because there's no Republican asteroids, there's no Democratic comets, there's no, it's apolitical, but it's become incredibly politicized, as you point out. I always point out, Dave, the word science in Latin, I know you're a scholar, so you'll know this. The word science means knowledge. It doesn't mean wisdom. So to expect wisdom from people that are knowledge, junkies, Wikipedia has a lot of knowledge, doesn't have any wisdom. You wouldn't want it to trust your dog with it, right? So I do believe that we're living in a fundamentally scientific, technological age that kind of is worshiping scientists way more than I think we warrant. As anyone who's ever known the famous joke about scientists, how do you know a scientist is outgoing? Because he looks at your shoes when he talks to you. And it's part of the goal of this book is to humanize scientists and to recognize that we're just human beings. We have no special truth claims or wisdom claims than anyone else.
Does that sort of chasm between knowledge and wisdom sort of capture exactly the moment we're at, in a way where it's like we hear things every day in the news? Okay, there's a new study that says something. That tells us something about knowledge to some degree. But then the wisdom of the policies that then we are told we have to follow often seems a little screwy, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah, looking again, if you look to somebody for wisdom, when again looking to Wikipedia for wisdom is not going to be too fruitful, and yet we crave it because we worship at the altar of science, in some way justifiably so. It's led to life, increases, child mortality rates plummeting, vaccines and so forth that are just miraculous, and any other way would be difficult to describe it. Understanding the composition, evolution of the universe, to a fraction of a percent, just astonishing. And yet we don't, as a laity, as the lay person, don't really have a good understanding of how science works. So as the words of Arthur C. Clarke say, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And some say it could be indistinguishable from a god. And so I think there is a tendency, a desire to worship at the altar of science. And I think that's misplaced, because we don't elect scientists as a population. We elect politicians, a president, governors, et cetera. We elect those people, and they want to pass off, I think, some of their responsibility to the scientists who we don't elect and we wouldn't elect in any other capacity.
So last part on this specifically, but do you sense that sort of the reputation that science and scientists have gotten over the last year, where it's been so sort of battered and inconsistent, and wear masks, don't wear masks, the vax is working, it's not working, booster shots, the whole thing. Do you think it can recover in the next couple of years? Because right now, when they just trot out the next study, like at this point, I'm just like, this is just more nonsense. I'm not saying I don't believe that the study was conducted, but what it will always lead to is just like, I can't listen to this stuff anymore.
Well, the biggest misconception is that science is ever settled. I think the public has that to their dismay, because believing that science is settled is antithetical to science. Think about it, Dave. If Galileo came along and said, "Well, Aristotle was a scientist. He's very smart. I'll just accept that there are only 4 elements instead of 114, or that heavy things fall faster than light things." All these things he could have verified, by the way, but he didn't actually go out and do that. But Galileo would never have come up with the initial laws of relativity. Same with Newton, Einstein, because Newton is a genius. I can't outdo Newton, as he often looked up to him. So therefore, as Richard Feynman, the great Nobel laureate of the 20th century, said, science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. Otherwise, you'd have no motivation to ever modify, refine, and improve upon who or what came before you. So I view that, and I view it to the detriment of science and scientists themselves. Often people say, "Oh, I'm no Einstein. I can't understand it." Well, guess what, Dave? Einstein wasn't Einstein, in the beginning of his life. So I think the more that we kind of venerate without explaining how science is actually done, it harms our own practitioners of the craft of science that I am engaged in.
Yeah, and that really actually is what the book is about, because you talk about things like creativity and human expression and passion, all of these things that we don't really associate with scientists and their work specifically. So let's just dive in. So you have 9 chapters here, each one going off a different scientist for a different reason. I thought we could just spend a couple minutes on everybody, but you got to leave some secrets here, otherwise people won't buy the book. So a couple minutes on everybody. I know how it works. Chapter 1 is about Adam Rees, the stargazer.
Yeah. So Adam is a contemporary of mine. He's basically my age. And back in, I think it was 2005, there was a worldwide competition to determine who was the greatest, scientist under the age of 40. And he and I entered it. I came in first as the most promising scientist of all time, at least of that age. And then Adam came in third. And so later, 6 years later, when he won the Nobel Prize, my older brother, Kevin, who watches the show, he called to report on me and said, "Brian, you won the battle, but Adam won the war, brother. You you had the temporary reprieve." So Adam is an incredibly curious individual. He's very young, and what is often said about the Nobel Prize, in fact, by Nobel laureate T.S. Eliot, who won it for literature, he said the Nobel is a ticket to your own funeral, because no one ever does it after he wins it. And Adam is a real counter example to that canard, because he has gone on to, great heights astronomically and otherwise, educational, mentorship, et cetera. I think he best exemplifies the fact that, Dave, I never thought I could be a professional astronomer. Growing up as we did on Long Island, I thought someone's going to pay me to be an astronomer, like they're going to pay me to be an ice cream taster or a wizard or something like that. So I really do look at him as the fulfillment of this dream that you can do it. You can achieve your passion, but passion alone is not enough. You need to have insatiable curiosity. I say passion is a spark, but the fuel is actually curiosity.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about academia instead of nonstop yelling, check out our academia playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out our full episode playlist. They're all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.